live. That's live. Yeah. Double check.
Streaming on YouTube?
Yeah, it's live. Yeah. So now I think 8 people are watching. Yeah. Yeah. It's 8 right now. Yeah. Yeah, it's on the event page, so you can share it. Okay, yeah, I know. Yeah, so you can share with your friends. Yeah. It's on the event page. Yeah, that's. Yeah, we can see. It's a little bit late. This is the actual. It's a little bit late. It should not be this excited about it.
Hello. Hello. Okay, we're gonna get started now. Can everyone hear me? If you can hear me, clap your hands once. What about twice? All right, so we're operating with 1 microphone tonight, which is going to be great. I'm pretty excited about it. Just to get started, welcome to the Daily Cal Candidates Forum. My name is Kareem Dumar. I'm the opinion editor. Should we go around and introduce all of ourselves? No. All right, so here's how we're going to start. We're going to do ballot measures first. Each primary sponsor of a ballot measure is going to come up and spend 2 minutes telling you why you should vote for their ballot measure. To my knowledge, none of the ballot measures have primary opposition, so you'll only hear from the primary sponsors. And then we'll go through the 5 positions. First, we'll do student advocate, then AAVP, then EAVP, then EVP, and then president. Each candidate will get 2 minutes to answer each question, and all candidates for each position answer the same question. Does that make sense? Awesome. Melissa, who's the editor-in-chief, and she's sitting in the front row, she'll be here giving candidates warnings when they have 1 minute left, and then when they have 3 minutes left. I'm sorry, I mean 30 seconds left. You don't get 3 minutes, I'm sorry. And then rebuttals are given only if something a candidate has said is called out by another candidate, and they're granted at my discretion only, and those are only for a minute. In general, just try to hold your applause until the end so that we can make this a smooth process, because it's late and it's Tuesday night and it's midterm season. Oh, and all the candidates, after the forum is over, congregate on the stage so that Rachel, our photo editor, can take a portrait of all of you that we can run with the endorsements. And if we don't take your picture, then that would be bad. All right, let's get started. I think we'll start with the ballot measures. And the first one is the Constitutional Clarity and Consistency ballot measure. And Alec Klimek is supposed to be here to speak for it. Is Alec here? Okay, we'll come back to that if Alec shows up. The next one on the list is the Declaration of an Action to Mitigate the Student Housing Crisis. And to my knowledge, Chris Yamas is going to speak about that.
Hey y'all, my name is Chris Yamas. I'm ASUC Housing Affairs Manager, Assistant Chair of the Student Housing Commission, and co-sponsor and co-campaign manager for this referendum. So I'm here before you today because UC Berkeley provides the lowest level of on-campus student housing. Is the mic okay? Okay, cool. Lowest amount of on-campus student housing, not just of the entire UC system, but of any public university in the nation. It's a huge issue. Every student has felt the effects of this affordable housing crisis here in the Bay Area, but the university and the administration has further exacerbated this crisis by failing to make student housing a priority while putting millions of dollars into renovating a museum and building a hotel over there in downtown. So the administration plans to increase enrollment by at least 15,000 new students over the next few years, and yet has only plans to build 725 net new beds by 2020. As the university expands on enrollment, they will only worsen the status quo if we don't see a significant increase in affordable housing development. This referendum is important because we urgently need action now to address this crisis. The ballot measure is conveniently named Prop D because it will, is the mic being weird? Is it cutting in and out? Okay. Because it will declare that we are in the midst of a housing crisis, demand that the university work with the ASUC to build. It's working now? Ah, there we go. Getting contradictory orders here. Demand that the university work with the ASUC to build at least 6,000 additional beds of student housing near campus and run by the university or a housing nonprofit over the next 10 years, and direct the ASUC to create and regularly update a comprehensive plan to address this crisis. This referendum is endorsed by the Berkeley City Rent Board, the Berkeley Student Cooperative System, the Berkeley Tenants Union, and the ASUC, all unanimously by bodies within the leadership within those organizations. And ultimately, passage of this referendum will be a strong statement that students care about this issue and that the university should act upon it. So thank you very much for listening, and I strongly urge you to vote yes on Prop D. Thank you.
I'm very bad with technology, so I assume the mic will just be odd all night, but we'll get through it together. Okay, the next ballot measure is the Ink Initiative, and Michelle Pitcher is going to speak for that.
Can y'all hear me? Yeah. Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Michelle Pitcher and I'm the primary proponent for the Ink Initiative student fee, which is a ballot measure that calls for a $2.50 student fee to benefit the Daily Cal, with a third of the revenue returning to the aid for all UC Berkeley students. This will replace the existing $2 semesterly fee that students already pay to benefit the Daily Cal that was passed in the student body in 2012. So that fee is going to expire in 2017, and with it, the Daily Cal will lose a crucial source of funding if Ink does not pass. So we've been independent from the university since 1971 when the campus administration responded to an editorial we wrote about People's Park by firing the paper's top editors. So since then, we've maintained financial and editorial independence so that we can avoid any of that sort of outside influence on our reporting. As y'all may know, the past decade has been kind of wacky for the news industry. And the Daily Cal's financial situation is kind of directly related to industry-wide trends. So we're doing our best to adapt to these changes, and we are diversifying our model to move more toward a digital revenue stream, but as it stands, about 7% of our revenue still comes from print ad sales. So cutting back or halting Tran altogether would actually be a very short-sighted and ultimately harmful act for us to do as an organization. So that said, the Daily Cal has been on campus since just 3 years after the university was founded. So it's a Cal tradition, almost as old as the campus itself. Over the past 145 years, we've done our best to provide y'all with the news that you want and deserve, covering things that you care about. So help us continue to serve you for at least another 5 years. Vote yes on Inc. Thank you.
All right, and the next ballot measure is the Green Initiative Fund fee, and I believe Wes Adrianson is going to.
Very excited to introduce the Green Initiative Fund to you tonight. Check out votetgif.squarespace.com for some more information. Save Some Trees is a great website. Firstly, I want to thank everybody who's contributed to this amazing campaign. Allegra Savusi, Jimmy Dunn, Jacob El Sanati, Paulavi Sherry Carr, Brian Galketsis, the whole TGIF volunteer team, and especially Sharon and Catherine for helping to build this community last night. It's a really amazing opportunity to renew this referendum. So this is UC Berkeley's Campus Green Fund. This is meant to improve and support student sustainability efforts. We currently pay $6 a year. That's going to increase to $8 with the renewal of this referendum, with an increase of $1 every 3 years. That's to account for inflation and really a growing demand for this amazing opportunity. Check out tgif.berkeley.edu for more information about the projects that have been happening. I've been walking around and seeing these projects all over the place. TGIF has funded the Dwinell Hall water filters and water bottle replenishment systems. Hundreds of thousands of fills. That's taking water bottles out of landfills. The Bicycle Shop, the new ASUC Student Union, more vegetarian and vegan options in Cal dining. Solar panels on MLK. TGIF has done everything. It's amazing. It's endorsed by the ASUC Senate, and it funds projects that really work to manifest new engagements with student sustainability. It's also really important, something that I care about a lot. This makes sustainability accessible to all students on this campus because it funds a huge amount of student internships. That way sustainability is accessible and students don't have to compromise their financial security to work on the projects that they care about most. And to close this up, y'all, TGIF prioritizes student empowerment through the lens of sustainability. I really hope y'all take a critical look at it and vote yes. It's an amazing referendum. I'm so excited to see what TGIF can offer over the next 10 years and what UC Berkeley students come up with next. Cool.
And just to clarify, did Alex Climate show up to talk about the constitutional clarity and consistency ballot measure? No. All right. That's cool. Okay, now we're going to start with the candidate positions, and we're going to start with the student advocate. Thank you. All right. Before we begin with this part of the forum, I just want to make a short little trigger warning. A lot of these conversations end up surrounding sexual violence, and so just keep that in mind. To start with student advocate, we have Stephanie Nicole-Garcia and Selina Lao. Just a reminder, if we can hold the applause to the end, just to make things run a little smoother. The enthusiasm is great, but just listen. Come on. All right, so the first question, we're gonna go Stephanie first, and then Selina, and I'll hand you the microphone so that people can hear you, or you can try to project. In light of public attention to the campus's recent mishandling of sexual misconduct cases, how would you use the student advocate position to support students and to put pressure on the administration?
name is Stephanie Nicole-Garcia. I'm with the Defend Affirmative Action Party. And so addressing this question about the recent mishandling and sexual misconduct cases on the campus, I would use the Student Advocate's Office to be able to mobilize students and organize students to be able to build student power and build the student movement in order to put pressure on the university directly through taking direct action. I heard about recently the reforms that the administration has made, and basically the reforms are to add more resources. They're not getting to the source of the problem. The problem is not more resources. Resources are great, I agree. I'm a survivor myself, I'm a survivor leader and an activist on this campus, but the problem is holding administration accountable and having themselves hold themselves accountable. They did not hold themselves accountable in the Daily Couch article and the new reforms that they were going to implement. They get the choice whether they remove these people from the university campus and remove them from their positions after they've been found guilty. So if the administration is not going to hold rapists accountable and is not going to hold rapists accountable or sexual aggressors on this campus accountable, then we, the students of this university, have to hold them accountable, and that's what I'm going to do by organizing the student body and the student movement to be able to put pressure on the university to hold themselves accountable. And the way we do that is tell them, if you don't implement these policies, if you choose to keep a sexual aggressor on this campus instead of a survivor and protect and defend their safety and prioritize that, then you will resign. We will make you resign, and if you're not doing your job, you have no right and place to be on this campus, because student safety is not a priority and student interests are not a priority for you. So you need to get out and be removed, just like the rapists on this campus. Thank you.
Sure. In light of public attention to the campus's mishandling of recent sexual misconduct, how would you use student advocacy to support students and put pressure on the administration?
So in past hi everyone, my name is Selina Lau. I am a third-year independent candidate running for student advocate this year. I have served as chief of staff this past year and the grievance director, and have been involved in the student advocate's office for the past 2.5 years. Part of that is supporting survivors, and that's what I have been working on for a really long time. In relation to the recent filings of sexual misconduct cases, I think one policy change that I would really like to make is that right now, if a faculty member violates the sexual violence or sexual harassment policy, they don't automatically violate the faculty code of conduct. That I think is totally wrong, and I think that anyone who violates that policy should have appropriate sanctions be measured. Additionally, I have worked to increase survivor resources, such as eliminating the medical expenses for survivors at the Tran Center for them to get counseling and other tests done. And I think that it's really important to emphasize that survivors get a choice here on this campus, that resources are out there because survivors need to feel empowered and go about their healing in the way that they best feel. So I would continue to work on the UC-wide policy that I have been doing for the past year, as well as Berkeley's campus policy to make more trauma-informed decisions, such as the now trauma-informed training is required for anyone who touches the reporting process. Also, the expansion of the Care Advocates Office, which now has 3 survivor advocates and a prevention specialist, making sure that, especially with the new students who are coming onto campus, that they have all the resources that they need at the Tang Center. So in the past week, and I would do everything that I can to make sure that survivors are supported. Thank you.
All right, the next question, Selina will answer first, and then Stephanie can answer. The question is, how would you work to increase awareness about the Student Advocates Office and the resources it provides?
So in the past year, I think that we have actually done a really good job in expanding our outreach to students. We've seen an increase of over 100 cases from the last year. And I personally have overseen over 250 of those cases. I think a lot of that is due to reaching students where they're facing their issues. So for example, we've gotten our information on financial aid and scholarships budget appeals forms, and therefore we've seen a 300% increase in our financial aid cases and our financial aid casework. So we would continue to go, and we're already on the Title IX office's website. We send a help letter to any student who receives a alleged violation. And I think that it's going to be really important to continue to find avenues for students to see that we have the resources to assist them. And additionally, I think that I really want to increase our presence to the student body, just being on Sproul, being open to hearing what they have to say, and being a physical presence, as well as creating a forum for them to give us feedback on what issues they think are relevant for the student body, and really respond to the student needs that we see.
Hi everyone. So my response to this question, as y'all know, y'all might know my name because I have been fighting for the last 6 months publicly to name and to expose a person who assaulted me on this campus about 1.5 years ago. His name is Omar Kajoza. And so I have led a public campaign in order to remove this person off the campus. So a lot of people might know my name through that and my public fight for justice. I've been making my story and my experience known on this campus for 6 months, and thousands of students and community members have signed my petition in support of me and also to uphold what the university has said, that this person was found guilty 4 times now and that this person should be removed. And so if elected to the Student Advocate's Office, I think that the awareness around the Student Advocate's Office would automatically increase just because of the amount of attention that, you know, my movement and the movement that I have started against women's rights and survivors' rights on this campus are very well known. On top of that, mobilizing students in the way I did last semester to rally in support of me in my events, in my tribunals, in my hearings, and also at my emergency protest, provided the model with dealing with sexual violence and harassment, and also like getting the word out. Like if you hear that something's happening, like it's just the word is spread and people are gonna know about these issues, and they're gonna know that the Student Advocate's Office and myself would be leading these events in order. So that automatically by itself just garners a lot of attention. And the office, in conjunction with the student movement, would hold public student tribunals and also public investigations to find whether there was a hearing, whether there was a finding of a policy violation. And so we would enact student movement justice, so that, you know, because I really feel that students on this campus should have a say in what their safety looks like, and, you know, having not only a space or a place where to make their voices known and their demands heard, but also have a place where they know where they can do something about it. And so those are the things that I would do in order to get students more awareness around the Student Advocate's Office.
Thanks. That concludes the Student Advocate part. Thanks to both of you. The next position we're going to do is Academic Affairs Vice President. So we will Please, I don't want to keep saying it because I feel useless, but please hold your thoughts till the end. If it gets too out of hand, we're just going to stop the forum because we like it to run smoothly. Thank you. Back to the introductions. It's Francis McGinley, Kathy Tran, and Nancy Murillo. I guess we'll just go the first question in the order that you're here in front of me. The first question is, the recent AAVPs have focused largely on student wellness. What would you do to expand on these efforts?
So, hi, my name is Nancy. I'm running with the DAP party. So, student wellness, that includes a lot of things. Where do I start? You know, stopping the fee hikes, making sure that this campus is not a hostile one where rapists are allowed to walk freely on campus, where racist teachers are allowed to be racist to students, where administrators who are found responsible for rape and sexual assault or sexual harassment are allowed to be on campus simply because for a career. Student wellness also includes students feeling safe on this campus, to be critical thinkers on this campus, that their critical thinking of and their criticism against the university is not censored, that their research is able to, you know, not benefit a private business, but, you know, the students' actual, you know, what they want to research, the truth. Student wellness includes exposing the truths. Student wellness includes students not being brutalized on campus for peacefully protesting. So what I will do as an academic affairs VP is to build a new student rights movement. So students have the power to have the wellness on campus, that students don't feel stigmatized on campus just because their skin color or their race or their gender or their sexual orientation, whatever. So I plan to build a student movement to put the power onto the students' hands and not let these administrators and anyone else who's oppressing them stop them from, you know, reaching their full wellness that they should have on this campus and other UC campuses.
Can you repeat the question, and also who's keeping time again? Okay, thank you.
Recent AAVPs have focused largely on student wellness. What would you do to expand on these efforts?
So, hello everyone. My name is Kathy Tran, and I'm running for AAVP, Academic Affairs, Vice President with Counselor, Cal Students for Equal Rights and a Valid Education. I'm currently a third year studying political science and Asian American studies, and I'm also a current ASUC senator. For me, wellness is not just about mental health, it's not just about academics, but your overall holistic well-being. And for me, personally, as a first-generation student of color, I've accessed wellness resources through student of color spaces. In the past, I've looked at wellness as a way of mental health. How can I access mental health resources to multicultural communities? By hosting workshops, by also working with the Mental Health Coalition to develop and fix the action plan to make sure it's more inclusive. So I want to do this in two ways. The first way, as future AAVP, I want to make sure that we have retention data. So wellness is really good in the sense where we're giving resources to students, but right now the current student organizers really need the AAVP's help and the AAVP's power and ability to outreach to students to see who's actually on campus and who's graduating on time. So retention data, in the past, I've been able to disaggregate AAPI students' retention data, and I want to make sure that we help Mental Health Coalition get that data. Who's on campus and who's graduating. Next, I want to help make the ADA Accessible Fund more accessible. Right now, there's been only 2 applicants to the ADA Accessible Fund, and that's one of the most underutilized funds within the AAVP department. It is the AAVP's role and responsibility not only to look at these grants, but to make sure that students are applying. And if they're not applying, how do we make it accessible? This fund, I want to make sure that students can apply for more counseling sessions with a TANE, not just the 5. Thank you.
Yeah, Francis.
Please hold your applause till the end. Like the 8th time I've said it.
Hey everybody, once again, my name is Frances McGinley and I'm running to be your next Academic Affairs Vice President for Student Action. Thank you so much for that question, Tran. So addressing mental health would be a top priority for the Academic Affairs Vice President's office if I were to be elected. What I really want to do is expand on the work of the current AAVP in terms of promoting overall holistic student wellness. But in addition, I think we need to move beyond holistic student wellness and address the fundamental lack of resources provided through the Tank Center. So this past semester, I've been working with the Mental Health Coalition on the development of the Mental Health Action Plan. And through the AAVP's office, I want to make sure that professors and administrators are implementing the recommendations made in the action plan. So one of the ways the AAVP's office can do this is by working with the Academic Senate and the Graduate Assembly to provide trainings to faculty and GSIs on how to identify and recognize the signs of students struggling with mental health issues. In addition, providing them resources that they can give their students if they notice that one of them is struggling. Another way that I plan on addressing this is by institutionalizing ongoing peer support groups through the AAVP's office, because it's important to recognize that not all students feel comfortable going to the Tank Center. Not all students feel comfortable going to see a psychiatrist because of the stigma attached to it. So we need to make sure there's enough student resources that provide peer-to-peer support in these areas that can create a network of support and solidarity, and also promote destigmatization, because students can realize that they're not the only ones suffering. This is not one person issue, this is all of us issue. So that's what I would do as your next AAVP. Thank you.
All right, the next question, Francis, you can start with the next question is, the AAVP is responsible for cultivating ASUC's relationship with the Academic Senate. How would you change the current relationship, and what about it would you keep the same?
All right, this is an incredibly important question, because arguably the most important function of the AAVP's office is its relationship with the Academic Senate. The Academic Senate, the appointments to the Academic Senate are the student's primary connection to the faculty's governing body. So one way that would be a priority for my office in terms of how I would deal with the Academic Senate is to make sure that we hold Chancellor Dirks accountable to his promises of instituting a peer review board to review how cases of sexual misconduct are being addressed at the administrative level. So it's important to me to appoint student leaders that are well-versed on the reporting process, Title IX, and how these issues have been mishandled by the university in the past. So, in addition, I would like to work with the Academic Senate on a plan Senator Andre Liu and I have been working on for the past several months, and that's addressing textbook affordability. So right now, students are spending an average of $1,200 a year on textbooks, and by working with professors and administrators, we can institute moving towards open source alternatives that would reduce the price of textbooks. So one way that I would plan on doing this is reaching out to the chairs of the Academic Senate. So over the past couple of months, Andre and I have met with Vice Chancellor of the Undergraduate Education, Kathy Kochland, in addition to Jeff McKee-Mason, the University Librarian, to talk about how we can really get this done tangibly. Both of them were incredibly supportive of our ideas. However, when we reached out to Ben Hermel, the chair of the Academic Senate, he didn't even bother to respond to our emails. So this points out a fundamental problem that the Academic Senate doesn't think that they're accountable to student voices. And so as your next AAVP, I would make sure that the Academic Senate, the administrators, and the faculty are listening to student initiatives and taking the student voice into account. Thank you so much.
Hello everyone, my name is Kathy Tran and I'm currently running for AAVP. I'm currently the only candidate on stage right now that is in an Academic Senate committee. I currently serve as a member in the Diversity, Equity, and Campus Climate Committee, making sure that we keep students accountable, not only student representation accountable and tenured faculty accountable. Academic Senate is incredibly inaccessible. It is the governing body of our student government that includes tenured faculty, and most of the time the committees that the AAVP appoints to only has one undergrad and one graduate student. That's a lot of weight on me as for one student to be the voice for diversity on campus, and I'm tired of that. As AAVP, I want to bring back advocacy and policy back to the AAVP office. We've been focusing a lot on resources. We need to make sure students have a voice for change. I want to do this in two ways. First of all, I want to create policy trainings on how students can work with tenured faculty. It's been incredibly difficult. As a community organizer that recruits and retains students of color, I've had to do campaigns, and that's how I know how to work with tenured faculty. So I want to make sure that AAVP, before we appoint someone, we give them policy training on how to talk to tenured faculty, how to navigate the university. Policy training is important to have your voice heard. Second of all, I want to make sure that we publicize our policy reports. Right now, our policy reports can be circulated through the Daily Cal and more accessible. If we only have one undergrad in a committee, we want to make sure whatever notes they have is accessible on the AAVP website so that it's not only that one student organizing around the issue, but student organizers and clubs can also access that information. It makes it more easy and accessible for students organizing around, for instance, on wellness, on diversity, to look at all those policies and seeing what that one person in that one committee is saying to other students. Therefore, I want to make sure we have policy trainings, and I also want to make sure that we publicize these policy reports. Thank you.
Can you just repeat the question?
The question was that AAVP is responsible for cultivating ASUC's relationship with the academic senate. How would you change the current relationship, and what about it would you keep the same?
Okay, so I think the relationship between the AAVP, right, and the academic senate is the main issue here. The core issue is representing the students. It's not about the committees, the task force, the bureaucracy, the administrators. It's about the students claiming power and, you know, their demands being fulfilled by these senates and the all these committees. And we know that administrators need to be held accountable when they're not representing students, when the academic senate is not representing students. And with my role as an AVP, I will mobilize students to demand and expose these administrators who are not representing the students. And yeah,
Thank you to the AAVP candidates. And now we're going to move on to the EAVP. So we need under a little meek reminder to keep the applause till the end. Thank you so much. And again, we'll just answer the questions in the order that the candidates have lined up. And the first question is, what is one issue facing students on the city side that city government hasn't done enough to fix, and how would you lobby to fix the problem? Just as a reminder, the person taking the video asked for you guys to hold the microphone closer.
Who's keeping time? Okay, thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Aarefah Mosavi. I am running for EAVP with the DAB party. One issue that is facing the city side is the current student housing crisis that thankfully I believe Boomer and members of CalServe have created a referendum for it, so I do commend you guys for that work. One thing that we definitely need to do, and I strongly believe that we can do it because it was successful during the 2014 fee hike movement, where thousands of students gathered in unison to protest against those fee hikes, and that's what truly brought the UC Regents to their knees. Let's not forget that. So I strongly believe that we need to demand more funding to UCs to cover tuition and housing fees. It can be done through another youth-led movement. Let's rally to Sacramento. demand our congressmen and women to slash funding from the military and allocate those funds to education. Right now, the Fed spend $718 billion on our military. That's more than the next 12 or so countries combined. According to The Atlantic in 2014, free education would cost us only a mere $62.6 billion. All it takes is 1/6 of our military budget, and we could fund free housing and tuition throughout the UC system. I strongly believe that this can be done, and it can be done with all of our support. Yeah, and that's it.
What's one issue facing students on the city side that city government hasn't done enough to fix, and how would you lobby to fix it?
So thank you for the question, Kareem. Again, my name is Andre Liu, and I'm so excited to be running to be your next External Affairs Vice President with Student Action. So to answer your question, safety is a huge problem that all sorts of students from all sorts of backgrounds face every single day. And so I want to combat this issue through 2 platforms. First and foremost, I want to design and implement a mobile panic button application similar to the one used in UCLA. Essentially, the way this button functions is you can tap the panic button application and it sends a pre-written text message to 6 emergency contacts. It could be 2 best friends, 2 parents, and 2 housemates. In addition to that, it sends the GPS location as well as a notification to UCPD. And this is proving to reduce response times by 44%, something that could make a huge difference and impact so many students' lives. And the best part of it all is it only took 1 year for the student government to implement. And I've been talking to the UC student region, Avi Oved, the implementer of this at UCLA, on how we can implement this at Berkeley, and he has given me exactly the process how we can do so. In addition to that, I want to continue my strong working relationship with the Parking and Transportation Department here. As your ASUC senator this year, I kept to my promise as a senator, and I ensured that we had enough university administration pressure so that within 2 to 3 years, the Cal One card and the Clipper card will become one student Clipper card, Cal One card. And so now I want to work with the Transportation Department to purchase a university fleet to act as a subsidized ride-on-demand service similar to Lyft. So that way students can have a safe and affordable way to get home. Because unfortunately, the late night shuttle bus is unreliable and it only goes around a certain route. So students still have to end up walking 2, 3, 4 blocks just to get home. And as your next External Affairs Vice President, my main priority is to ensure that all students are safe on and off campus. Thank you.
Hi everyone, how are y'all doing? My name is Vicente, and I'm running to be your next External Affairs Vice President with us. First of all, we as students cannot succeed if we do not have a place to live. Currently, UC Berkeley provides the lowest amount of housing for both its undergrad and its grad students. We need to make sure that we address this housing crisis. We cannot wait for a candidate who has no experience on addressing affordable housing to work on this. As a current senator, I co-founded the ASUC Student Housing Commission. I am one of the primary sponsors for the student housing referendum. Not only that, but as EAVP, I want to critically engage students in this conversation. As the only candidate in this stage who is endorsed by folks in the city, by the Berkeley Tennisman, by the chair of the Berkeley Rent Board, by city council members such as Jesse Allegheny and Chris Worthington. If you want to address local issues, you need to have that relationship with the city. You need to be constantly engaged and lobby with city council members. I'm the only candidate on the stage who has been constantly going to city council and advocating for housing related items. I feel it is important that if you are running for External Affairs Vice President, you need experience working in the city. You need to make sure that you are accountable to the student body and to city council members. As a senator, as someone who is definitely passionate about about constantly advocating for student housing, I will make sure that given my connections, given my experience, and given my endorsements with folks in the city, I will ensure that we will address this housing crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, Kareem, for giving me the opportunity to speak once more. So I want to clarify something. Boomer has done a lot of work with housing, but he is not the only candidate who has experience working towards housing affordability advocacy. In fact, I was the founder of the Financial Wellness Commission and the chair of it. And this year we worked with RSFP to host a housing fair. In addition to that, I am also a candidate who has worked with other city council members as well. I worked with city council members to ensure that we can work on more affordability and accessibility. And in addition to that, housing is something that I extremely care about as well. As someone who is low income myself, all of the projects that I've worked on have served to impact students in all sorts of ways. In addition to that, it is extremely unfair for a candidate to ever say that they are the only one experienced with housing, because all of us as students understand the capacities of an ASUC senator and any other ASUC official and anyone who's outside the ASUC as well. You don't need an endorsement to ensure that housing is affordable for students. Actions speak louder than words. And I hosted a housing fair with RSSP, and that is an action.
We're just going to move on to the next question. We're going to move on to the next question. The next question will go to Boomer first, and the question is, the EAVP supervises lobbying efforts by students. What are your specific plans to get more students involved in lobbying?
Hi everyone, my name is Boomer Vicente, and I'm running to be your next External Affairs Vice President with Cal. It's important that within lobby, we hold not only city folks accountable, but state, national, and international folks accountable. As currently, I have the most experience in terms of housing. Last week, actually, I was, sorry. So lobbying for me is an important issue. As someone who has grown up in a space of community organizing, specifically, my first year, I was an organizer for Fund to UC, which was a UCSA campaign my first year. Last week, actually, I was appointed by UCSA to be a student advocate to the regions. So I have the experience of not only lobbying regions, but also UC chancellors and stakeholders. And I definitely took that opportunity to make sure that we advocate on police accountability, on voter registration, and housing affordability. So given my experience as someone who came from a space of community organizing, who knows how to organize folks within ASUC, also my experience is I have constantly been kind of like involved in spaces that have constantly been advocating for a lot of the issues affecting students on campus. Specifically, 3 issues that I want to lobby in terms as my AVP is accessing more mental health resources within the UC, making sure that we lobby for AB 2017, which will increase college mental health resources for all campuses within the state, making sure that we invest and we lobby to increase state funding for public education in California, making sure that we referral Prop 13, which will add billions of dollars to education, making sure that within my lobby experience, we advocate for divestment from private prisons to ensure that these monies are going to higher education, and also making sure that we lobby for housing affordability with the Housing Opportunity Pact, which was made by Senator Mark Leno, making sure that these issues, that these propositions are advocated at the state level. So with my experience, with my knowledge already on issues that I want to lobby, I will ensure that these issues will be addressed within the EAVP office. Thank you.
Hi everyone, again my name is Andre Liu, and so I could list a long list of things I want to lobby for, but we can't lobby for anything if students are not registered to vote and if they are not civically engaged. There are 238,000 students across the entire UC system, but so many students are not registered to vote and they don't come out and vote and actually voice their concerns. And so we've seen this past year, with the GLA ordinance at the city council, yes, we were able to rally so many students, but at the end of the day, the city council knew that we were not civically engaged enough to actually make our voices matter. And so what I want to do as your next External Affairs Vice President is to register enough students to vote so we can make our voices heard. How am I going to do this? I'll tell you. 2 platforms. First and foremost, I want to sign an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with the resident halls so that we can go door to door, knock on the dorms so that we as the ASUC can register incoming first years, because they are the most likely to not be registered to vote, or they haven't even voted in an election yet. And so this is our prime opportunity to engage students up front. In addition to that, I want to be creative with how we register students to vote. I want to work with the ASUC Executive Vice President's Office as well as ASUC Superb to host Coachella, which will be a music festival on Memorial Glade where we'll have voter registration booths easily and readily accessible for students so that they can register to vote. So, in conclusion, as your External Affairs Vice President, I'm not going to list a long list of things we want to lobby for. Yes, we all have our own advocacy materials and what we want to advocate for, but at the end of the day, how can you make your voices heard if you're not registered to vote and if you're not civically engaged and knowledgeable and aware? So as your next External Affairs Vice President running with Student Action, I'm here to make tangible change and actually get things done rather than just talking about them. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi everyone again, my name is Aarefah Mosavi. I'm running for EAVP with DAP. I strongly believe that the #1 way to increase student involvement, which I am very experienced in, Boomer, is to first inform students of pressing and pervasive issues on campus, like campus sexual assault, on which I have experience. In fact, I began by publicly exposing the assailant who sexually assaulted and raped me in Southern California, in addition to holding him accountable, in addition to the administrators who decided to cover for him. We believe, and I believe, in accountability. If you violate the civil and human liberties of anybody, you deserve to be held accountable. You deserve to face the consequences. And for anybody to sit here and suggest that we should continue a dialogue that we've already been having for 20 years is absolutely ridiculous. It is time to start holding people accountable. Number two, I have experience in organizing students and increasing minority enrollment, fighting for refugees to grant them asylum. As a matter of fact, we're working with Rosalinda Lorenzo Matias, who fled from Guatemala to escape genocide. Knowing, if anybody who knows my family history, my own family fled to escape genocidal violence from northern Pakistan. So that experience speaks very deeply to me, and I care very deeply about fighting for basic civil and human rights that aren't even being met in the United States of America, right here in California, which is supposed to be the most liberal state in the nation. In addition, Chancellor Harry LeGrand authorized police to beat students during the peaceful protest, the Occupy Count. He needs to go. He also authorized, he was also one who was responsible for allowing rapist Omar Pedroza, who was found guilty of raping Nicole-Garcia 4 times, twice by the administration and twice by police departments. He needs to go. He has a horrible track record. Let's put it at that. In addition, well, the gist is, I would definitely, as EAVP, I would definitely galvanize students to be involved. That is, this is our campus. We are the majority. The definition of a democracy is majority rule with respect to minority rights. Student student protests are the definition of what it means to be a democracy. Again, we are the majority on this campus.
So I want to address 2 things. First of all, I have experience lobbying within city council and lobbying the state. Second, when we talk about lobbying, we also need to mention that not everyone has the privilege of voting. Like, we need to make sure that folks who are identified as international citizens undocumented students, and I would say students within California can't vote. So lobbying is a way for those who do not have the privilege of voting to go and lobby and register for issues they care about. Also, I was former vote director of the EAVP office. I have experience registering over thousands of students to vote. Currently, right now, I'm working with UCSA to write a resolution that will automatically register students to vote when they register the classes. This is being put in the ACC Senate tomorrow, and it will be passed. I will ensure that. So, given my experience already, being able to be a vocal director of the EAVP office, I not only have the lobbying experience, but the qualifications to register 10,000 students to vote. And as EVP, I would do that.
All right, that concludes the EAVP portion of Executive Vice President for the Forum, Alicia Please be quiet. I don't know if we've done for the last two. We'll just kind of answer the question in the order that the candidates have lined up on stage. The first question is, what is the biggest shortcoming in the way that the ASUC currently serves student groups, and how would you fix it?
The current problem with the ASUC is the fact that it does not recognize the power that we have as students. There are 238,000 students just at UCs, and we feel that we're obliged to only answer to a handful of administrators, and that is absolutely ridiculous. Think about that. Every single one of you in this room, when you talk about committees, you talk about when you talk about committees, when you talk about task forces, those are just groups to answer to the administration. We have this mindset constantly that, how are you going to work with the administration? Well, why do we have to work with the administration? Why is the administration working for the students? I'm paying $30,000 a year in financial aid to go here. I don't have to have 5 people tell me what is going to go on with my education. That's my right, and that should be all of our rights. And I think it's really critical that we all think about that for a second. When we're determining who to vote for up here, are we going to vote for someone who answers to someone else? Or are we going to vote for a candidate who votes for students? Because that's the difference. A vote for DAP is a vote for yourself. And it cannot be any clearer than that. All right? Chancellor Dirk should have to answer to the student body, because we're the majority and it should be a democracy. We have the right to do what is possible. And right now, the ASUC feels compelled that they have to answer to him. They feel subordinate. They feel like if he has a problem, they need to roll on their back. That's what my Cocker Spaniel does. That's not what I do. I fight for students. I'm not here to gain a political position. I'm here to fight student rights. I'm here to support the community I'm from, inner city Fresno. I'm here to make sure that my community has the opportunities and to promote diversity so my peers in Fresno can attend this school. Instead of 3 of us coming here, I want a vast majority of Fresno people coming here, because that's how you fix community problems. You fix community problems by getting leaders into schools like this. You don't get it by segregating them. And you empower students in order to get what's needed.
Hello everyone, my name is Wes Adrianson. I'm a third year studying civil and environmental engineering. I'm a current ASUC senator, and I'm so excited to be running to be your executive vice president with Cal Students for Equal Rights and a Valid Education. The ASUC serves its students in a lot of ways, but the data is clear. We've opened up this new student union, and it has not yet met the promise that it promised to its students. We have sent out a survey, and the #1 way that we can improve the student union and improve the way that ASUC serves its student organizations organizations is with space. And this is a fundamental constitutional responsibility of the EVP. The first way that I'm going to improve space on this campus and how student organizations can access our student union is by streamlining the key card access. Now, this is a very personal issue for me. It took me over a month to get key card access. That should not be happening on this campus. We built this student union. Students deserve a place for safe and secure community organizing, for studying on this campus. The student union needs to be that hub on campus. To streamline the key card process, I'm going to make the whole thing paperless, save some trees. I'm going to spread it out among multiple youth center advisors. I'm going to work with UCPB to update their end of the system so that we can get this done twice as fast. Secondly, where there's an opportunity to actually build more space in the student union. The MLK basement has 14,000 square feet of untapped room. I'm already working and meeting with student groups to build 9 new resource centers, 20 new cubicles in the MLK basement. This is going to be an incredible opportunity to serve some of the most underserved students on this campus. Student parents, re-entry students, undocumented students. This is huge. I am currently the chair and co-creator of the Real Estate Student Board, and I've been working with Vice Chancellor Leland and standing up to Vice Chancellor Leland. I'm going to work with him to get this project done by the end of my term. I'm so excited about that. I am the only candidate on this stage with campus real estate experience, which makes me qualified to make sure that ASUC is serving its students in terms of space. Thank you.
Again, my name is Alicia Lau, and I'm running to be your next Executive Vice President with Student Action. Next year is an extremely pivotal year because with 1,000 students coming in onto this campus, Wheeler Hall is being closed as well. And so what's happening right now is that the university is leasing space in Poly Ballroom, and that is student organization space. And so what I want to do is ensure that there is temporary space for student organizations on campus to do the work that they have been doing. And so that's having MOUs with the residential halls in addition to iHouse, and so ensuring that they have the space that they need. And secondly, when I was an ASUC senator, I had the opportunity to reach out to all lead-sponsored organizations and meet with those who responded to the email with the survey, and we talked about what was currently facing them at that moment. And what I found out was that the signatory training process is something that they want to work on. And so I took that, what they talked about, what we talked about during the meetings, and then I went to the lead center to talk about how we can work on that as a whole. So again, my name is Alicia Lau, ready to be your next Executive Vice President.
The next question, Alicia, will start looking back this way. The question is, one of the roles of EVP is to foster the most productive environment in the ASUC Senate. Do you think that requires the EVP to act primarily as an unbiased moderator or as a partisan figure actively engaged in Senate discussion?
Thank you. So I see the role, so part of the role of the Executive Vice President is to foster the most productive way for the Senate. The role of the Executive Vice President is to foster a productive way for Senate to be run. When I was 16 years old, I had the opportunity to found a nonprofit organization, and I was able to reach out to senators.
Go! Go, Alicia! Go, Alicia!
Could you repeat the question, please?
One of the roles of EVP is to foster the most productive environment in the ASUC Senate. Do you think that requires the EVP to act primarily as an unbiased moderator or as a partisan figure actively engaged in Senate discussion? As the chair of the Senate, I'm looking forward to facilitating the most productive and unbiased space possible. One of the biggest problems with the ASUC and with our perception on campus is that it's partisan, it's gridlock. That's not acceptable. As your executive vice president, I will belong to a party, CalCert. My #1 priority will be the well-being of all student groups on this campus. And I am so excited to be working to support all students and all senators. As Executive Vice President, I am looking forward to working with all senators and reaching out individually throughout the year to make sure that senators are okay and that they are doing the best that they can to accomplish all of their platforms. Partisanship is a reality. It helps us bring all of our ideas to the table in the most productive way possible. I also want to stress that as an ASUC senator, I've worked across party lines to make sure that all of my bills have been sponsored by senators across the party aisles. And I'm looking forward to making sure that as your Executive Vice President, I support all senators. Thanks.
Let's take 1 minute.
Okay. Yeah.
Vacuum.
Should I move the mic in the front? Like do here? Well, yeah, but yeah.
You want me to go in that room?
Oh yeah, yeah, sure, yeah. Keep going. Keep going. There, sure. So I'm just gonna put the mic here.
Careful that those people don't trip on it. Careful that those people don't trip on it.
Yeah. Thank you.
lot of her platforms and stuff, and they saw that. And she was very like, that's why I supported her. Since she was all together.
All right, everyone. Hello. Okay, so what we're gonna do right now is we're gonna table the EVP portion of the forum, go right to president, and then come back to EVP. At which point, either Alicia will come back or she will proxy speaking work. Does that sound good? Okay, so I'm gonna give everyone one more minute. I'll announce that side so people can come back in, and then we'll get started with the president section of Hey, everybody, I'm back. Okay, so in fact, they're not gonna have a proxy speaker, so what we'll do is continue the EVP now. Sorry for the mixed signals, and then move on to president once that's finished. And then the Daily Cal will work with Alicia to figure out a way to get her answers to the questions published to the world.
Yeah.
You sure? But please.
I'm good, but I'm lost.
All right, then, what we'll do is Thomas will just answer the final question for EVP, and just remind everyone the question was, one of the roles of EVP is to foster the most productive environment in the ASUC Senate. Do you think that requires the EVP to act primarily as an unbiased moderator or as a person who is actively engaged in Senate discussion?
Well, first off, I think everybody's kind of flustered right now, so let's just make sure we're okay. But to focus back on the question and just put that out of our minds, it's absolutely ludicrous to think that any candidate is going to be unbiased when it comes to running the Senate, because otherwise we wouldn't have an election. We're not electing the best referee. We're electing a candidate with a platform. And I know that people disagree with platforms, but that's why there's elections, because then you get the majority. Now, the way that fosters a safe environment for the ASUC is we promote student action. We promote what the student organizations want. It doesn't have to be a party system in which the ASUC is separate from everyone else on campus. That doesn't make any sense. For a student, it's supposed to be student-run, student-led, and for the interests of the students. And what that means is we have to represent that. We have to represent students. We have to represent what they want. And we have to give power to those students. So having committees is fine, but if you're having committees to only answer to administration, that's an issue. And I really want people to realize that making sure that people and students are involved in the political process is the most essential thing. Holding tribunals is important. The ASUC shouldn't be separate. They shouldn't have to feel like they're on their own entity. They should be actively involved. So by the ASUC sponsoring tribunals, whether it comes to racism, sexual assault, sexism, immigrant rights, whatever the issue is, the ASUC should be leaders. And I should be a leader in leading the ASUC to make sure that student rights and student organizations are represented for what they want. And I really just hope that everybody realizes that there's an election, so the fact that someone would say that they're unbiased when it comes to the situation is ridiculous. There's going to be partisan, there's going to be bias for what you want to get done. And we're having an election to determine what type of candidate we want. And what type of candidate I am is a candidate for the students, not for anybody else. Not for my career, for the campus, for the people.
on to first thanks to the EVP candidates for coming up here and speaking. We're gonna move on to the president section of the forum. So we need Michael, Sheena, Will, James, and Kira. For the first question, we'll just start with Will and then move down the line. And the question is, the ASUC Constitution grants the president a wide variety of powers, including veto power and emergency orders. Under what circumstances would you exercise those powers?
Once again, my name is Will Morrow, and I am running with Student Action to be the next president of the ASUC. I would like to start off by saying Alicia is currently with her friends and being taken care of, and she will be okay. And I'd like to remind everyone here just how incredibly strong it is for everyone to get up on this stage and show why you want to be a student leader. With that said, to get into the question, the power of the veto and the power of the executive order are two of the most important responsibilities of the president. With these responsibilities also comes a duty to the president to be thoughtful and communicative with these. A veto should not come out of the blue. A veto should be a constant process of communication, a process of communication that does not surprise a unanimously passed bill, but rather a constant display of communication. Now, a bill might have had the merits to be vetoed, but in order for that veto to happen, there needs to have been communication with senators from beforehand, with other executive officers, and one thing that I'd like to bring to the ASUC executive officials next year is to form an ASUC Executive and Chief Officers Committee, one that would be public and have regularly scheduled meetings where there would be an opportunity for public comment. Additionally, the executive order is another important role. In both of these circumstances, effectively, the president is overriding the will of the student body, of the elected officials and representatives of the legislative part of the ASUC Senate. So such a veto, such an executive order should only be used in certain specific times. When a certain group on campus is targeted or at risk, or when the financial stability of the association is at risk. I look forward to being an ASUC president who communicates with senators and represents students, does not override them. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll preface this and all my answers just by stating the primary idea behind my campaign, which is to gouge the amount of student interest in sweeping reforms within the ASUC. And if elected, I would serve as a temporary administrator to these kind of reforms. And as a preface to all my answers, yeah, the idea is that I would solely serve as a temporary administrator, a kind of blank slate, if you will, directly listening to the will of the student body through direct democracy. So this is a good question for me to introduce kind of the ideas of that like temporary period. Because I would step down after achieving whatever desired reforms. Yeah, I would use the executive power given to me by the constitutional system of the ASUC, vetoes, et cetera, to force the ASUC to institute whatever reforms the student body desires, then step down.
Could you repeat the question, please?
The ASUC Constitution grants the president a wide variety of powers, including veto powers and emergency orders. Under what circumstances would you exercise those powers?
Hi, my name is Sheena Paul, and I'm running to be your next ASUC president with CalServe. I believe that the veto power should be reserved as a last resort from the ASUC president. It is important to remember that there are multiple opportunities for the ASUC president to engage with the Senate body before a bill passes through Senate and before a bill is vetoed. What I will do as your ASUC president is make sure I am not only meeting with senators offline, but I am also connecting them with student groups that are impacted by their bills, making sure that our student body is engaged with these bills. In addition, if I feel that conversations about the bill have not been completed, I will make sure that I am going to the appropriate committee to make sure that we are talking about the bills, to make sure we are looking at bills from multiple perspectives. In addition, I will make sure to also use my Senate announcements for an opportunity to raise awareness about the context of a bill and how maybe there are new perspectives to be talked about regarding the bill, and encourage the senators to pull the bill for discussion purposes. Again, I only will be interested in using veto power as a last resort. It is important to understand that the role of the ASUC and president is there not to infringe on the Senate legislative body, but to make sure that they are adding to the conversation, to make sure they're connecting the senators with other constituents on this campus. Thank you.
Hello. As you can see, my voice is a little husky tonight, so I'm gonna let our presidential candidate Kira do the talking. Kira's running to be your next ASUC president with Squelch. So I'm gonna hand it over to Kira.
Don't need it.
No, you make a good point. Is that all? Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Can you repeat the question?
To repeat the question, ASUC Constitution grants the president a wide variety of powers, including veto powers and emergency orders. Under what circumstances would you exercise those powers?
Okay, so hi everybody, my name is Michael Cortez. I'm running with the Defend Affirmative Action Party. So I'm going to address your question directly. I would veto any bill that was put forward by either the ASUC or by the administration that is not in the best interest of the students. For example, the administrative of the Regents referendum to equalize anti-Zionism rhetoric with anti-Semitism. That's just factually incorrect, and that is an imposition on academic freedom here on campus. I would veto any bill that increased private dependence or economic private dependency of the university, and also thus, increasing academic freedom. But more importantly than the veto power of the presidential, I would also use the symbolic capital of the presidential role and other resources of the president to garner support of the entire student body, because there are more important issues that I believe, at least, that are on the forefront of the hostile campus climate. For one example would be the current student code of conduct regarding cases of rape and sexual assault. For example, if the ASUC were to put forward a bill like that, and if I were the president, I would veto that bill. What that bill does currently, that they changed in 2005, is that bill gives the rapist all of the power in the hearing process. He gets to decide what sanctions. He gets to decide what sanctions that he receives. He gets to decide what evidence is presented in the case. If the victim puts forward an argument, it could just be deemed irrelevant by the rapist. Anything that would take power from the students, I would veto that bill. And yeah, thank you.
As ASUC president, what do you expect your relationship with the ASUC president and the Berkeley chancellor to be?
Thank you for that question. Okay, so I am the only candidate on this stage who is not a business as usual candidate. I'm not interested in a career. I'm not interested in being a bureaucrat. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I'm interested in administrative accountability. I'm interested in student power. I'm interested in mobilizing the students and fighting for things that I believe in. Like, let's be real.
all these things that we're talking about, you know, like we getting like, a key card to a room. These are like insignificant matters. We could fight to double underrepresented minority enrollment here at Berkeley. African American students represent less than 3% of the student population here. Latino Americans represent less than 10% of the student population here. In 1980, both populations consisted of 30% of the population. I don't know how that's not racist. I don't know if you guys think that's not racist. I personally think that's something that needs to be addressed directly. In terms of rape and sexual assault, I would stand by survivors. I would stand by and support survivors and defend their right to name and publicly identify their rapists. And finally, and more importantly, or equally importantly rather, I believe that we can organize the entire student body, California student body, or even just Berkeley. We can occupy California Hall. We can occupy Sproul Hall. We can demand free tuition. We can occupy, and we can mobilize students and working class people to Sacramento to demand free tuition. This is exactly what like Bernie Sanders is talking about, a political revolution, right? We go where there's a political gridlock and we demand it. Lobbying is important in a capitalist democracy. I understand. But this is about an ideological difference of whether you think, A, the government should not have any influence in public affairs, B, that the government should be run by a small handful of bureaucrats who are extremely powerful, or C, by the student body, by the public, and I am that candidate. Please vote for me. A vote for that is a vote for yourself. Increase student power and challenge the administration. Don't just stick to this respectability politics. Like, I disagree for one with the Daily Cal's opinion that Janet Napolitano suddenly had a change of heart, or Chancellor Dirk suddenly had a change of heart, and he just aimed to address rape and sexual assault. This was a response into the movement. This was a response to the Title IX lawsuit that they're facing. They are not a inspiration. They are a force to be reckoned with, and it is something that I would challenge. I would challenge them directly, and I'm the only candidate probably on the stage willing to say that. And thank you for letting me take more time.
Do you mind repeating the question? Or, yeah.
Sorry, I love dogs.
She makes a lot of good points. Thank you. Do you mind repeating the question?
As ASUC president, I expect my primary role to be advocating for the student body and to be representing them. Knowing this, it is important to acknowledge that a few years ago, the ASUC passed a Senate resolution that was a bill of no confidence in Janet Napolitano because students on this campus felt uncomfortable. They felt that she threatened the inclusivity of this campus. Acknowledging this, I will make sure that my interactions with Janet Napolitano will represent the student body. I will make sure to hold her accountable to representing students on this campus, in addition to being inclusive on this campus. I want to transform what accountability looks like in the engagements between the ASUC president, Chancellor Dirks, and Janet Napolitano. It is important that accountability is not just an email subject line, it is students being involved in these meetings, not just ASUC elected officials. I will be making sure that I'm bringing in other constituents a part of the student body, making sure that these meetings are not just between the ASUC president or one of the other 25 ASUC elected officials, but understanding that there are issues on this campus that impact students from all walks of life. Understanding that these students have the right to advocate for the issues that impact them and impact their communities on this campus. That being said, I will make sure that first and foremost, I advocate that those UC Regents meetings are accessible to students. It is important that students receive UC-funded transportation, not transportation that comes out of the ASUC, specifically the AAVP office, but transportation that comes out of the UC. Additionally, I will make sure that with Chancellor Dirks' Office of Strategic Initiatives, we have students appointed to those initiatives, specifically students that already act as peer advisors within their specific departments. That way we have students that understand the resources specific to those departments. Again, I'm looking to transform what accountability looks like on this campus, and I will do that as your next ASUC president. Thank you.
Okay, so this is pretty simple. My relationship with the UC president and the Berkeley chancellor would be, during my period as temporary president, would be entirely determined by the wishes of the student body as determined by direct democracy. I wouldn't take a single step without consulting the student body.
As ASUC president, there's a responsibility to be in the room for the important discussions that affect students. The ASUC president receives a $4,000 per year stipend to do one primary job: represent the student voice. If you are not even in the room with the folks who are making decisions impacting students, then you are not fulfilling that job. Now, to me, I will fundamentally disagree with the chancellor, with the UC Office of the President, with state officials on numerous occasions, but that is not an excuse to not try. I'm not gonna let the UC Office of the President intimidate me out of that room. I'm not gonna let the chancellor intimidate me out of California Hall. The fact that the Office of Strategic Initiatives Executive Council does not have a sitting student on it making the final decisions is a problem. Because if we're having budget cuts, if we're having situations that impact what the future of student life here is at Berkeley, the ASUC president, in conjunction with the graduate assembly president, need to work together to make sure the student voice is heard. Additionally, that student voice does not necessarily need to be my personal political persuasion. If the will of the student body as passed through the ASUC Senate differs from my own personal opinions, I still have an obligation to represent that opinion to the chancellor, to the president, to the regents. And if that opinion is to no confidence to walk out, I have a duty to acknowledge the importance of the Senate's voice and do that myself. UC Regents meetings shouldn't be held on spring break. The chancellor's meetings should be held not in regular monthly intervals. This was a historical precedent. The ASUC president and the chancellor would engage in regular dialogue in a way that the chancellor would keep the president informed. This is something I hope to continue on and build next year so that we can build a better Berkeley together, even if that means fighting or cooperating with administrators.
And the question is, today the California State Auditor reported, this California State Auditor report alleges that the standard for non-resident acceptance has dropped and that the UC is making it harder for California residents to get in because out-of-state students bring the UC more money. As president, what kind of action would you take in response to this?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the first part of the question?
Yeah, so today the California State Auditor report alleged that the standards for non-resident acceptance in the UC has dropped, and the UC is making it harder for California residents to get in because out-of-state students bring the UC more money. As president, what action would you take in response to this?
It is important to understand that our university is a public university, and as such, it must function to support public education of both California residents as well as non-residents. It's important to acknowledge that both of these groups of students bring in a beautiful campus environment. They create different ideas on this campus and they bring in different histories. That being said, as your next ASUC president, I will make sure that we are working to ensure that we have the financial aid resources for both of these different types of groups of students. It's not fair for this university to claim that public university title if it's not supporting students from both residential environments in California as well as non-residential students. As your next ASUC president, I will continue the work of President Yordana Stajin to not only limit financial support for students to just financial aid around housing, but also incorporate factors such as food security, understanding that students on this campus work. Already, as a member of the co-ops and as a Berkeley Student Cooperative Board Representative, I have worked to create scholarships within the very few affordable housing options that we do have. I will make sure that both resident students and non-resident students have access to affordable housing on our campus. I will do this through continuing the relationships I have built between the Berkeley Student Cooperative and our campus. That being said, I think it's important to understand that our university is facing a big crisis. We're in a $150 million deficit, and it is important for us to understand that we need a president that knows where we can look for resources. I will be that president. Thank you.
Okay, so I think this is an issue where it's particularly evident that the voices of all students on campus need to be heard equally. So once again, I would not take action on this issue without consulting the student body as a whole through direct democracy.
So I read the San Francisco Chronicle article today about this report. The state assembly, there are already assembly members who are working to draft a resolution to cap non-resident enrollment. In doing so, they are addressing a symptom of the problem, but not the problem. According to a Public Policy Institute of California study, between 2007, 2008, and 2013-2014, state allocations into the UC system and CSU system dropped by $2 billion. This speaks to the real problem at play. A systematic defunding of the University of California system of higher education of a public good by the state of California. And so the UC system responded to maintain the quality of education and the access to that quality of education for low-income students in California. They accepted more non-resident students to help offset some of the financial difficulties there. I would support the state investing more money into the UCs, and if that came with reductions in other non-resident students, that makes sense. But if the state of California is going to continually provide the UCs not enough revenue to sustain quality academic excellence, then we need to make sure we're bringing in all these perspectives. Additionally, I wrote a Daily Californian op-ed earlier this year on the importance of non-resident students to the educational experience of resident students. This measure is not just something where they provide financial resources, but also non-resident students bring global perspectives that enhance the quality of education here, bring new social norms that challenge our assumptions and predispositions here. Finally, as a non-resident student myself, this is something that is personal for me. Coming from Minnesota, I came to California because the promise of Berkeley was something I believed in. And I want to make sure the state continues to have that and not cap that capacity for future students such as myself. Thank you.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
So the California State Audit Report that was released today alleges that the standards for non-resident acceptance have dropped and that the UC is making it harder for California residents to get in because out-of-state students bring the UC more money. As president, what kind of action would you take in response to this?
You know, I actually like that question because it points out two things, two problems that we have in our university. One is the treatment of out-of-state students. So obviously they want to include more out-of-state students, be it in the United States or international students, because of their dependency on the university, because of their dependency on the housing around the university, because of their dependency just entirely on the university. They will, the rates that students pay from out of state is damn near like 2-3 times the rate that California students have to pay, or California residents have to pay. Also, it points out the second issue, or I suppose it's gonna have 3 issues. The second issue would be an issue that Boomer brought up, which is the issue of residency and the issue of, I suppose, of residency. So I've seen, or I've heard of, students that have come from international backgrounds who come here on a student's visa and it expires, or other students who come here on a student visa and they have to like rush out of the UC within 3 years so that way they can graduate within the time frame that they're given. Most importantly, this points out the lack of funding that goes to the universities. Now, the money isn't going to be found somewhere already in the student government. We need to organize students, like I said before, we need to garner student support from California if you want to get the money that we need to demand this from Senate and Congress members in California and say that we demand both free tuition for public education, higher education, and housing coverage to increase financial aid. There are more things that we can do and increase the overall welfare of students here on campus. In addition to that, I guess let's not get there.
I think Kira really said it all here, but just in case you didn't catch that, just to reiterate, she'd like to emphasize transparency, non-partisanship, and accessibility.
Right, the final question then is, what would your #1 priority be as president upon taking office?
Sit, Kira. Sit. Thank you.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
What would be your #1 priority as president upon taking office?
My #1 priority would be to build student power, to build the independent movement of students to challenge the administration, to fight racism and sexism on campus by instituting a 10% plan like Texas has with UC Austin, by allowing and supporting victims of rape and sexual assault to identify and publicly name their rapist, and thirdly, organize a movement, like I've said before, to organize in Sacramento, to demand free tuition, to demand more financial aid, to demand more investment into public education rather than into prisons and into police and into private institutions. Thank you.
My #1 priority as your next ASUC president is to address the current budget situation we have happening right here at Berkeley. We have a two-part problem. On one side, we are undergoing what Chancellor Dirks likes to call, quote, the new normal of strategic consolidation, or in other words, really scary budget cuts. These budget cuts are going to influence academic programs. They're going to impact student services. They're going to impact faculty members. They're going to impact every aspect of this campus. At the same time, we can't even afford to provide the requisite services for providing the quality academic excellence to our current students. We're actually taking on 750 to 1,000 new students next year on top of our normal entering class. That means that much more pressure on those spaces, on housing, on funding, on all these things that students need. Now, I'm no mathematician, but this is a math problem. Like, we shouldn't be increasing the number of students if we can't even afford this baseline for the current number of students we have. And with that, there's some solutions I'd like to explore right now. First, I want to acknowledge that the ASUC president, in being in the room with the UC Office of the President, being at the table in Sacramento with state leaders, being in the room with campus leaders here at Berkeley, can be the political voice, the engine of student change, and encouraging folks to follow through with investing in students. However, it's also important that as ASUC president, I'm not just words and I'm taking actions tangible that students can see. So to do that, I want to invest in student orgs through helping to develop an ASUC philanthropy fund that would involve student organizations being able to directly bring money in, something that is being started this year by the EVP's office that I want to build upon. And so in doing so, we can make sure that Berkeley isn't just a great institution for today, but for students 5, 10, 20, 100 years down the road. Thank you.
Okay, so I think you guys know what my #1 priority on entering office would be, since essentially I only have one priority, and that's to restructure the ASUC through choosing a petition from the student body based on popular vote to restructure the ASUC with the goal of encouraging students to participate in the student body government rather than prohibiting them from doing so, and essentially creating a more inclusive and democratically based student government. Thanks.
My #1 priority as your future ASUC president is to make sure we are supporting survivors of sexual violence. In order to solve a problem, you have to name a problem, and we have to understand that a one-size-fits-all solution does not support survivors of sexual violence. Sexual violence, yes, consists of sexual assault, but it also consists of stalking, intimate partner violence, and sexual harassment, as we have seen in the most recent weeks. What I have already done as an ASUC senator and as an organizer is expand confidential resources. Right immediately within the fall, I was able to bring in a new confidential care advocate who was there to support survivors with how they wanted to navigate their options, how they wanted to find their own ways to heal. I will continue to do this. In addition, as your next ASUC president, I will make sure we are supporting survivors beyond reporting. On this campus, over 80% of survivors of sexual violence choose not to report. It is important that we're not making these survivors slip through the cracks, and we're still providing the resources that support them, in addition to making sure we have mechanisms to understand how they feel about the resources.
You talk shit about survivors on your Facebook page, like people on stage. No. Sheena people on stage. She publicly said that my
Please, in the audience.
How does she support survivors?
Please, in the audience.
As your next ASUC senator, as your next ASUC president, I will continue the work I have done as a senator to support survivors of sexual violence. Understanding that they come from different groups on this campus, understanding that there isn't a single identity that fits within the survivor of sexual violence, understanding that it's important that we have options for them. I will also be working on sexual violence prevention education. I have already created a faculty bystander intervention initiative with both student affairs and the assistant director of sexual violence prevention. As your next ASUC president, I will make sure faculty get mandated sexual violence prevention training. I will make sure we have resources for survivors of sexual violence, and I will stand up for supporting survivors of sexual violence on this campus. Thank you.
Before you start applause, just remember that all the candidates need to come up on the stage after so that our photo editor can take their portraits. And now I'd like to thank all the candidates for coming